For the first method, the log mean temperature difference method is fine. For the second case, the effectiveness NTU method is suitable. I'll tell you why. Look at this. Here I have drawn the temperature distribution for parallel flow, and this is a parallel flow configuration that is shown because both fluids are moving in the same direction. This TH inlet, it shows the inlet condition of hot water, and TH outlet, the outlet condition of hot water. TC inlet is the inlet condition of cold, and I'm sorry, it is not water, it is fluid, and TC is the outlet condition of cold fluid. So these four conditions, and difference between the inlet conditions is delta T1 and difference between the outlet condition is delta T2. Now we know both the temperatures at inlet as well as the outlet. We know what will be the mass flow rate, that is this MH dot and MC dot are the mass flow rates for hot fluid and cold fluid. So mass flow rates are given, temperature conditions are also given. It is we have to just specify the appropriate type of heat exchanger. Since the temperature difference is logarithmic in nature, we are going to find out the log mean temperature difference for this case. If it is for a parallel flow, we will draw the circuit for a parallel flow and find out. If it is for a counter flow, then the same way we will have to proceed. Now I have taken the parallel flow as a first case. Okay, now all conditions are known to us. Only thing we will have to find out is what will be the specified heat transfer and which type of heat exchanger is suitable. Now Q equals mCp delta T. Applying this formula for this small cross section, I am taking a small cross section of area DAS. So this will be a del Q dot. The temperature difference at the hot end will be dTH. The temperature difference at the cold end will be dTc. So the net temperature difference will be a delta T. So this is going to be your delta T. That is a log mean temperature difference, LMTD. So Q equals mCp dTH. Mass flow rate of hot fluid, specific heat of hot fluid, and temperature difference of hot fluid. Here we have introduced a negative sign. The reason is the hot fluid is going to lose its temperature throughout the length of the heat exchanger. So to counteract that, we have introduced a negative sign. Likewise, we have written the same equation for the cold fluid. Looking at the second line, just dTH, rearranging this equation, I am finding out what is dTH. Rearranging this equation, I am finding out what is dTc. Subtracting these two equations, we will get this form. Now, the heat transfer for this small section del Q dot is U into A into delta T. Substituting this value in this equation, I will be getting a differential form of temperature distribution. Just integrating this equation, I will get the natural ln of this temperature difference equals, and the RHS remains the same. So LMTD is nothing but delta T1 minus delta T2 by ln of delta T1 by delta T2, where this T1 is known to us and this delta T2 is also known to us. So we already know these four values. We can find out this LMTD. Based on this, we can arrive whether it's a parallel or what type of heat exchanger required. Now to find out the LMTD for counter flow, we will have to proceed in the same way. Only difference is the fluid directions are reversed. So this delta T1 will change. It is TH inlet minus TC outlet. Earlier it was TH inlet minus TC inlet. This delta T2 is TH outlet minus TC inlet. Earlier it was TH outlet minus TC outlet. That's only difference. So here if we find out the LMTD, we will notice that the LMTD for a counter flow is always greater than that of the parallel flow. In other words, a small surface area is sufficient to achieve this heat transfer rate. So we have seen the LMTD method for parallel and counter. The next is multipass and the cross flow. So multipass and cross flow, they are combined together, and we are going to derive the mean temperature difference. Actually, finding out the mean temperature difference for this type of heat exchanger is going to be tedious. The ultimate equation that we arrive at is quite complicated. So what we follow is, initially to find out the LMTD for counter flow, and the same value is taken for this cross flow provided you are doing some correction on that LMTD. So what correction is? That is, we are introducing a correction factor. Multiplying the correction factor with the LMTD of counter flow will give the mean temperature difference for a multipass and cross flow. I'm repeating it once again. We'll have to find out the LMTD for counter flow and multiply it with the correction factor. So now this value is going to give the mean temperature difference for a cross flow heat exchanger. This correction factor depends on the geometry of heat exchanger and the inlet and outlet conditions of the fluid streams. This correction factor value is actually limited to 1. It can never exceed 1. So it is either less than 1 or equal to 1. When it is less than 1, you mean to say it is a cross flow, and when it is equal to 1, it is a counter flow. So based on correction factor, you come to know whether you are dealing with a multipass heat exchanger or a counter flow heat exchanger. So this is all with the LMTD method: parallel, counter and cross flow. For these three flows, how to determine the log mean temperature difference we have seen. The next is the effectiveness NTU method. So this case is slightly different. Mass flow rates will be given to us, inlet conditions of hot fluid and cold fluid will be given to us, but we do not know the outlet condition, that is the expected outlet temperatures we do not know. In that case, how to decide a heat exchanger? It's going to be a tedious task. It is only trial and error method will help us in finding out the the type of heat exchanger. So this trial and error method involves too many iterations. Hence, a simplified analysis is selected, and this simplified analysis is the effectiveness NTU method. Alright, so the next is the dimensionless parameter. The dimensionless parameter effectiveness is introduced here. Effectiveness is defined as the ratio between actual heat transfer and maximum possible heat transfer. When I say actual heat transfer, it is determined from the heat transfer equation, that is MCP delta T, where delta T will be the TC outlet minus TC inlet, or TH inlet minus TH outlet. With reference to any fluid, we can calculate this heat transfer. This capital C is the capacity rates. It is the product of mass flow rate and specific heat. So this is the actual heat transfer rate. The next is the maximum possible heat transfer rate. When can we say that the heat transfer is maximum? We can say it is maximum when the TH inlet is able to lose heat up to a temperature which is equal to TC inlet. So looking at this, yes. So this here you can see the TH inlet and this is the TH outlet, but it can lose the temperature only up to this limit, but the maximum possible is TC inlet. When it is cooled down to this much, then I can say there is a maximum possible heat transfer. So that is why we are mentioning here as TH inlet minus TC inlet. So this is the maximum possible value, where this C minimum, it denotes the least of heat capacity rate of cold fluid and heat capacity rate of hot fluid. Either of the two, whichever is the least, that is taken as C minimum. So the ratio between these two is going to give you the effectiveness method. The next one is considerations in heat exchanger selection. So far we have seen what a heat exchanger is, how to categorize them based on geometry, based on flow conditions, how to analyze it, and when it comes to analyze whether you are going to use the LMTD method or you are going to use the NTU method, those things we have seen. Now we have finished the analysis type. Now beyond analysis, what else we'll have to consider in a heat exchanger selection? So here I have listed out some 7 factors that are to be considered, out of which the heat transfer rate and cost plays a major role. They are the primary and foremost factors that are to be considered when you design. Say for example, suppose the heat exchanger that has been designed already is able to provide a very good effectiveness, but at the cost of the pumping power. So there's no point in defining a heat exchanger like this, which means when we are going to pump the fluid, any fluid, whether the tube fluid or shell fluid, any fluid, we need electric power. So what's the point in using more electric power and producing good effectiveness? There is no meaning. So the pumping power is a factor that has to be taken into account when designing a heat exchanger. So to a certain extent, this pumping power should be less, provided the effectiveness is reasonably good. So that should be considered. Then heat transfer rate. In the given length of heat exchanger, for the given time, the heat transfer should occur. We know the inlet conditions, outlet condition, the mass flow rate is fixed. So for these fixed conditions, how best the heat transfer is attained in what time? So that is called as the heat transfer rate. So a good heat transfer rate is always expected. Next is the cost factor. Cost is a very important phenomena. It's a very important factor. The thing is, if you are going to buy an off-shelf heat exchanger which is already available, that is obviously going to cost you less. Suppose none of the heat exchangers available in the off-shelf is suitable for our case, then we'll have to go for design. Start from scratch. You'll have to do the analysis, design, production. So this is going to cost you more, but it purely depends on the need. The second one is, and the next one is size and weight. When it comes to size and weight, the smaller the size and weight, the lower price tag it is going to hold. And but certain applications are there which really need a small size, like aerospace and automotive applications. The next comes the type of heat exchanger. We have discussed enough about the type of heat exchangers based on flow or geometry. So whichever is suitable for our application, we'll be choosing that. The next is the materials, whether we are going to use a stress resistant material or a corrosion resistant material. So based on that, you'll have to select. And the last, not the least, that's the leak tight. It should be leak tight. There cannot be any leaking of fluid outside the heat exchanger. Your heat transfer rate will not be satisfied. The next is ease of servicing. Servicing should also be quite comfortable. So here are the textbooks that I have used as references for preparation of this PowerPoint, and some web sources for figures also. Yes, I thank you all for watching this video. Meet you in the next module. Thank you.